Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show, show number 57. Weather and environment and the climate system are all part of the discussion today. We had a bit of trouble. We were trying to get Lexa actually into the stream today, but he's having a bit of trouble with his system. So Josh, say hello.
Hey guys.
And let me go and quickly move that around a bit. There we go. So, we're here to talk about the weather, how it's going to affect us in game, the environment, the climate system, etc., all that good stuff. Do you want to quickly read off what we know from the FAQ about the atmosphere and getting acclimated?
Sure. Yeah, in the FAQ, what are atmosphere and acclimation? There will be certain extreme environments in the game to which you'll need your character to become acclimated. There will be 6 at launch: frigid, scorching, toxic, anaerobic, pressure, and wind shear. Each of those extreme climates will have tiers associated with them, corresponding to how punishing they'll be to the player. For example, you may be able to survive in a tier 1 environment without any acclimation, but you would certainly experience some detrimental effects like a weapon or movement speed penalty. The higher the tier, the more detrimental and severe the effects would be. Yeah, so that's what the FAQ talks about it.
Okay, cool. So let's go, before we talk about the weather in general and the environment in general, let's go and talk a bit about the climate system. As we know, the climate system is going to affect the player through what you just mentioned: frigid, scorching, toxic, pressure, wind shear, anaerobic, etc. But also we know there's going to be like disease, physical, mental, arcane effects affecting you. You might be slower. You might your health might start ticking down. You might have a mana leech, etc., etc., etc. Are there any other things that they could do technically? We also know that the climates will also be varying in size. They might affect the whole region. They might affect the whole entire zone. They might affect a little area, a little pocket, a little place in that current zone where you're in. We saw that on, I think it was the second video, the second stream they showed it off. There was that little area just outside Black Dagger Keep where they had one of those climate systems in play that were affecting the player. And we also know that there's going to be mana stones, different colours: white, blue, I think 8 different colours altogether or something like that for us to start off with. And players will be able to use these depending on their class and race and combine, etc., and get beneficials from this. What else could they though do with the climate system? Because this only affects you from a combat side, from a personal side, being with a group, with yourself. How could weather and the environment affect the climate system as well, play a major part? Because I think that would be something pretty cool to see happen, like we talked about before we did the show. Let's say, for instance, now we're in a zone and it's there's now a climate that's giving out some kind of let's say, for instance, now we're getting affected by the climate through heat. It's extremely hot when we get towards that climate. Our heat resist, obviously, it has to be a certain height. We have to have a certain resistibility. What about having something like the weather affect that as well? For instance, like have it pouring down with rain. That would basically, obviously, cool the land down, cancel it out, or have it like all of a sudden you have like a cold shower or something like that. You have like, it's winter time, for instance, and have the environment and its effect. So if you don't have that resist gear, you could technically get away with getting past that climate by having weather also affect you, or a season affect you.
I think that's where druids, or is it druids or shamans that'll I think have the type of things like weather affecting type spells. So if that is in that hot area, I reckon they should be able to cast some sort of a thunderstorm to cool everything down. So to cancel those effects and to give them an advantage moving through that area.
Yeah.
Just like if it's rain, they can clear away those clouds, etc. So I think, yeah, they've got a big part to play in these type of environments.
Definitely. And we also know that druids will be able to affect or use weather or influence weather to some point in the environment. We already know that that's going to be a feature that druids will have. But we're not going to go and talk about, what other classes should be able to have. But let's go and talk about weather in general. We're all happy to hear that weather is going to play a major impact, play a major role towards you as a player. So you're going to be fighting against weather conditions, the environment, the climate, etc., and obviously the NPCs, your mobs out there, etc. So that adds another in-depth challenge to it. So when we talk about weather, we're talking about, having it rain, have thunderstorms, have a morning mist. Like we've seen on plenty of the screenshots from Wild's End, it kind of looks like it's dim, misty, foggy, etc. So we might have fog effects, fog play a major role, lightning, and obviously the scorching sun. That begs the question, will we see seasons in the game? Will we see spring, summer, autumn, winter? And how do you think that's going to play a part in the game? How would you like to see something like that be used throughout the game?
Well, it's quite interesting. I mean, the one picture they showed today was of the apple trees again.
Well, let me go and bring that up while you talk about it.
Yeah, let's have a look at that. And with the apple trees, I'm assuming that there will be some sort of a farming aspect to the game. And weather should really affect these type of things. So if there is going to be a drought, or if there is going to be just continuous rain because of some effect, maybe these crops gets washed away and you can't harvest the apples and use them for food type of thing. I'm just curious how that'll actually affect the players at the end of the day, or whether it's just going to be something that is superficial and not really going to have any effect whatsoever on higher level play, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
So these are the new pictures.
Yep, those are the new pictures, and we're trying to get Lexa back into the call, but it's not working. I'm going to wait for it one more time to come around to have a look at the Wild's End imagery as well, because you can see it clearly there, that fog, mist, etc., humid weather is going to play well. But if you look at this picture of the trees, that's actually one of the screenshots they showed where we talked about the farming idea. And this is actually an image from the back. We were speculating if those are trees that they had planted there, and now it's been revealed. So you could see gardens or stuff like that, or farmland where you have like apple trees and whatnot. And definitely would be nice to see whether it affect that. So there's that screenshot now from Wild's End, and you can see it clearly there. It's dull, dim, moist, foggy, etc.
Correct.
And
I'm just quite curious, whether these type of effects will be something you can actually work towards in some sort of a quest to clear out of a specific zone. So if you have a dry, arid thing, and maybe it's a curse on an area, it's something you might be able to change over time. So the game changes those zones and weather conditions based on what the PCs actually
achieve.
Yeah.
Well, we know there's going to be like GM events. There's obviously going to be stuff like that. And the simplest way of doing something like this, where you have actual conditions where weather, environment, etc. have come into play, is through like little game updates. So they could like do a little event where the server mentions a storm is coming, etc. And all of a sudden the servers go down for a brief update, and then you get back into the game, and all of a sudden the world's turned upside down.
Yeah,
that would be the easiest way to do something like that for the beginning. What they have planned, we do not know. But one thing about weather that I want to talk about as well, and quickly bring into the discussion before we start talking about all these individual things, is there's another game in development out there and you could see on the top right corner of their screen that they had a temperature gauge, basically where temperature also played a major role in the game. So it was, I think it was 11 degrees at night, so it was fairly chilly. And if you have like light clothing on, that's going to affect you. You're gonna freeze, etc. You're gonna feel a lot colder quicker. And I thought that is actually a superb feature, and something that I think would be pretty cool to add as a additional hindrance towards us as players, is actually have temperature affect us, not just have weather, spring, summer, autumn, winter, rain, storms, etc., but have the temperature also play a role, because you do have rainy days where it's warm, rainy days where it's freezing, etc.
Exactly.
and so forth. So have that affect us and make us also, because that also links towards the situational gear. Because when we talk about situational gear at the moment, for the most part, from VR's perspective, I'm thinking it's all related to having certain weapons or certain armor sets to face off certain threats, certain monsters. So you might need a crushing weapon for this NPC, you might need a piercing weapon for that NPC, you might need to have situational gear where you have a certain resistibility or a certain crit bonus, etc. But why not use that as well with the weather and environment? Have situational gear where you might be out in the pouring rain, and now you need to put on a nice little rain hoodie to keep yourself dry. That's another thing that we're going to talk about right now, is how the weather can affect us as players as well, make it challenging towards us, give us beneficials and not so beneficial abilities. Let's say, for instance, now we're in Avendir's Pass, you're fighting, it's pouring down with rain. Why not have the rain affect us in movability? Because we're soaking wet, for instance. Maybe you have a higher fizzle rate or a higher miss rate, so you're not going to hit the encounters that often as you normally would, because it's pouring down with rain. But it could also have a beneficial effect by, let's say, for instance, we have Lexa, the charging Dire Lord. Because it's raining, he's going to have a higher movement as well, so he might slip when he's running forward and he does his shield bash, for instance. Now that's going to have a crit bonus maybe, because the weather is infecting him. What do you think about something like that playing a role?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that would be great if they could incorporate that. I love the fact that rain can affect the guys, affect the armor itself, affect the movement of the players. That they have to be more. They have to steady themselves a lot. So you'd probably find that they're going to miss more at the end of the day. And also the rain could be chilling casters so that their fizzle, as you say, is going to be greater. And we look at other areas, things like you spoke about the wearing the metal armor in heat conditions and how it affects the players. Where they might have to consume a lot more liquids in order to wear that armor and fight in that armor going forward, or otherwise they could just pass out from exhaustion.
Exactly. That's basically how it would work. So there's benefits and there's pros and cons to it for you as a PC and your class, your race, etc. Thunder, for instance, could positively affect, or lightning could positively affect a wizard, for instance. He could use that harnessed energy from lightning to make a thunderbolt into a thunder strike.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that. The sun could also, impact heat abilities. So you're harnessing the energy of the sun to get a greater heat damage, and so forth and so forth. So there's always pros and cons to it. Like you already mentioned, having wearing armor in the desert, you're gonna drop dead. You're gonna need to drink 10 times as much more to not die from dehydration.
Yeah.
You wouldn't wear plate armor, but there should also be ways to work around that. That's where the situational gear comes into play. Where he would, instead of wearing plate armor, he wears chain armor. So
Yeah.
your
Or
normal
dragon scale, for
or
instance.
dragon scale, stuff like that. You know, mithril armor that's very light, to take off the load from him, to give him room to breathe, etc. And the same with you know, a mage. A mage might be wearing cloth armor, but if he's wearing cloth armor, if it's just a normal robe, and he's got a hoodie on and etc., he's going to sweat to death.
Exactly. But also wearing heavy armor in like things like rain, heavy rain, and going through deserts should affect your movement speed as well.
Yep.
So you should only maybe move half your pace in battles or that type of thing. So it's harder to turn around to face another enemy. You get hit twice as much probably.
Yeah. And you know, like chat's already talked about, you know, maybe have, you know, cold weather races have a deterrent in hot climates, etc., and so forth and so forth. So races that are acclimated towards cold weather or towards warm weather, etc., they have obviously negative effects in their counterpart environment and so forth, but they could also have beneficial. So if you have, like, let's say we have a let's take the dwarves. We'll take the dwarves. Yeah, they're blue.
Hardy folk.
folk. So they'll be used to the cold, etc. So in heat environments, it would basically kill them. It would basically make them, you know, oh god, this heat is so blastering, but unbearable for them. But they could also benefit us in cold environments because we have somebody who's already accustomed to the cold. Maybe he has a beneficial that he can use with another race to help us become accustomed to it. And that's another thing we also talked about on previous shows, is having now the environment. When we talk about environment, we're talking about the area around us, a certain zone, like let's say for instance Wild End, or you know Kargasans, which is desert, etc. Those are what the environments are. Now we had an idea on one of the shows about having indigenous plants, flowers, herbs, etc. only to a certain environment that we might be able to gather, make special drinks with, or spend time in an environment because they have a certain stat that is required for you to actually survive in their environment. So you might go into Wild's End as a human being, and disease and mental come into play because of all the wild plants and everything. So for you to get accustomed to that, you would have to basically gather the herbs, the plants that are in that zone, make special drinks out of it that you would drink to gain bonuses for you to bring up your disease and mental resistance towards that zone. That's another thing that you could also do, is have environment specific or zone specific environmental effects that you can basically skill up over time, learn to get yourself accustomed to.
Yeah, exactly. And they talk about the tiers basically when I read that earlier on from the FAQ. And the next chapter, let's just read that quickly. It says, how can one become acclimated? The process of becoming acclimated is carried out through equipment modification or special equipment allowing you to absorb resistances, altering the physical composition of your body. Your character will have different slots like chest, legs, hands, arms, feet, etc., to which you apply these items. We will reveal more details on how to exactly this will work and how to change the acclimatization as well. We want you to be seamless, and also plan on having different environments within environments, such as scorching environments found in the frigid environment of Amber Fae.
Yep, so that's another cool thing as well. Having actual mixtures of the environments be inside a frigid environment, like you just mentioned. In Amber Fae it's frigid, but there's also going to be areas where it's scorching. That's where the anvil comes into play. That will be a scorching area, and that's something that you don't see a lot of, where it's not taken to full effect, more or less. You'll have these different environments in a zone you're in, but it doesn't have that effect. And it seems like these guys are really trying hard to give you that feel that you're in this cold environment, and then all of a sudden you're going to see this blasting, scorching part of that environment, and you're going to feel it. And that's what I want to talk about now. Is when we talk about the weather, snow, or the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter. How would you like to actually see that? If something like that could be put into the game, where we also have seasons be in effect, how would you like to see it done? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I think it all depends. You know, I mean, like the things like summer and winters are different throughout different areas around the world, and you know, I think they would standardize it: snow in the winters, heat in the summers, and the lovely colors in autumn and spring. But I do think that they are really going to mix it up in terms of the environments throughout the whole of the world, through Terminus and through the different lands. So we'll be seeing quite a big difference, I reckon.
Well, the way I see it, if we look back at all these other games, because this also connects to, you know, holidays. Technically, you know, all the holiday events that have, you know, been recreated in the games. For instance, Christmas is Frostfell, etc.
Yeah.
St. Patrick Days, Brisbane, Brew Day, or whatever it's called, I can't remember.
Brew Day, yeah.
So they have all these different holidays. So they could do something similar with the seasons as well, where they bring the servers down, because obviously this would have to be planned ahead of time to have it actually be alive and functioning inside the game itself, where the leaves start turning a different color and get darker, and then the leaves start falling off. If that wasn't planned from the start, it's going to be hard to, you know, do right now, even though there might be ways to do it. But they could bring like the servers down, and when that time period's in there, you can see it happen. So not every zone, obviously. There might be zones that don't have these effects, and hopefully they don't have these effects, where they're not affected by summer, winter, spring, autumn, etc. So I'd definitely like to see seasons definitely be in play and be seen throughout the game. So you're in Avendir's Pass, where it's now spring, the trees are all bluing and everything. Now winter comes. Obviously, I want to see the trees, you know, almost dull and dead, and I want to see snow on the floor and see, you know, the snow come down, etc. Because this is the next big thing. I've been screaming for weather and environment for ages in games, and now a lot of them are starting to pick up on this and use these weather effects. How they do it, we'll have to see what they have in plan. Because one tweet was very interesting that VR put out. It was a tweet about weather, and they had this major storm cloud, major thunderstorm in the background as an image. And people asked about it, and they said this is the kind of weather we want to have in Pantheon, similar to this storm cloud. So we can expect a large weather affecting us, so we will be able to we'll see different types of rain. So you might have it like drizzling, you might have rain showers, you might have rain storms. One interesting thing that you brought up, which I want to quickly talk about, is you talked about the wind.
Yes.
So what was your thought there?
Yeah, okay, well, they do mention wind shear as one of the things that they're going to introduce, and I really hope that they get this right. For me, it would be great for the wind to actually affect how people climb, so you can actually get blown off what you're climbing if you don't have enough skill in order to do the climbing aspect there. So yeah, I think that'll be another element in the game that I'd love to see. But I don't know how they'd get that right.
Yeah. One thing that somebody, Asraus, brought up is something we actually talked about. Maybe a certain entrance to a certain zone only open during a specific season, or maybe blocked by ice during winter. Now, we talked about something similar to
that's
this.
Great.
Our idea was basically to have weather actually affect the environment itself as well, not just us as players, not just the NPCs, the mobs, but the world itself. So we could have like a major thunderstorm or a hurricane or a blizzard or something like that happen. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that we can physically see. It could be a GM-driven event, etc., saying that there's a blizzard going about, destroying the world, blah, blah, blah. The servers come down. Now, you're in this pass where there's mountains all around you. The servers go down. You log back in. All of a sudden, this pass is now blocked because the mountain has crumbled and fell apart. You're now blocked from moving through and carrying on your adventure. Now, this brings in events for crafters to do, so you might have to get crafters to come and or harvesters to come along and grab, start breaking down those rocks and moving them out of the way, because they would start harvesting them. Josh's idea was like having maybe a bridge broken down, so now you get the crafters come along having to go and rebuild this bridge. So you do like world events, so you can add weather, environment, climate to world events and have us as the players engage in certain events like that as well. That's how the weather and environment can affect us in a fun way. On top of it is by having global events or zone events, etc., depending on whatever they plan to do, affect us.
Yeah, like AOS says over there, with the Mad Max rad storm system that he talks about. Now, that would be great in a desert area where after a while an event occurs where it blows away some of the sand and it uncovers maybe a tomb of something where adventurers can go, and it becomes an open zone for them to raid or to instance type of thing.
We're talking about the weather and environment, and before I actually carry on with this thought, I want to quickly go and talk about B. Franny's thought as well. Might be interesting to see NPCs interact with weather instead of standing out in the rain. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about. That also comes into the behavioural pattern. That's where their behaviour should also be affected. So we know this. I think there's 5 different behaviours that they have. The bully, the alarmist, etc., the coward, and so forth and so forth, but also have their behavior be affected by the weather as well. So you're running through this area where it's normally populated, there's tents all over the place, or normally it's roaming with orcs or ogres or whatever, or goblins. Who cares what it is? Now, you know that they're always there. You're running through there one day with your group, and all of a sudden there's nobody there, because they're all hiding inside their tents or in buildings or whatnot. So you think, hey, whoopee-doo, nobody's there. You might get ambushed that way. You might be surprised by, these guys popping out. Or you run into a building, or you run into an area where you think, hey, nothing's going on. There's nobody here. I can do what I want. Boom, no, you can't. Shock moment. All of a sudden, these guys start coming out because they hear you.
Or they could be hiding because they know that this is a frequently it's lightning that shoots from the sky over a certain period, and you're going to fry if you stand out there, type of thing. So that's why they're hiding.
So anyway, to get back to what I want to talk about with the weather and environment, I see greatness for weather and environment and the climate system towards the counterpart of what Pantheon is all about, PvE. So PvP can definitely profit really well if done right from the weather and environment and the climate system too. I see great things to be done with this kind of system for the PvP players out there, the people that want to go and do PvP. There's so much that they could do that give people advantages, disadvantages, etc., that play a major role and have greater effect towards them in the PvP aspect than it would with us in PvE. Because obviously there's going to be limitations to what you can do with PvE towards PvP. PvP has a broader way of going about things, because there are certain rules and things that come into play that are going to affect us, where they can't go and just go crazy and say this is how we're going to do it for PvE. There's certain rules that have to come into play and they have to take make account for. But with PvP, there's really no rules for PvP. PvP, player versus player, kill on sight. Be killed, exactly. or whatever. So PvP could also prospect really well from events like this, and with the rad system as well. Have a a similar system like you already said, where all of a sudden this zone is completely bonkers because of a crazy weather going on, a major storm. We're now all mentally crazy. Now we might start attacking each other, damaging each other, etc. This is stuff like that. So this is where also PvP, to a little point, could also affect us in the game as well as PvE players.
Yeah.
You might not want, you're not interested in PvP. That's fine, but have little events like that where every time you hit this monster now because of this storm, you're damaging your own players, your own group mates. Stuff like that could happen. There's so much you could do. It's really, really cool.
Well, you could become every time you raise your sword to hit somebody, you have a chance of the lightning arcing through your sword and shocking you, basically. So yeah,
that's how you get your fiery Avenger. Everybody that everybody played EverQuest. For all you EverQuest people out there, with the weather and environment, etc., you could get your fiery Avenger finally in Pantheon. Fire and stuff like that affecting you. You can have a cool sword like Brad had in his streams, because I guarantee that's a fiery Avenger that he had in the streams. That's gotta be. So stuff like this happening, and I really like the idea of weather or environments or even climate, even unlocking or locking certain access to areas in zones or buildings, instances, etc. as well. I think that's a really cool idea. They could have like the climate system, basically that zone wide. It's kind of like a fog of war. It's now a fog of war.
Yeah.
There's normally there's a secret cave or something like that, or there's a cave entrance in this zone normally. But because this climate system is up and active and not been stopped, it's like a fog of war. We just can't find this entrance. So when you destroy this climate system or overcome it or whatever, that's another thing as well, to be able to destroy these systems, take them down. That's another thing that I would also like to see, is have climates be something that we can also take down. Like, let's say, for instance, it is a zone-wide thing. Maybe there's a raid monster or a certain monster that has to be overcome for this thing to lose its power, this climate to lose its power over the zone, etc. And with that, they could have like events going as well, or even have it already in the game where this one climate that's overtaken the entire zone has infected all the mini climates that are around this zone and taken them over. They've been basically made obsolete. And once that kicks out, once somebody takes down whatever the job to do might be, all these other climates start kicking in. You're running around, you've got climates next to you, all of a sudden, boom, this climate goes off, and you're like, whoa! You're dying, or you're getting affected by, physically or mentally, or through arcane, or darkness, silence, poison, miasma, etc., etc., etc. All these kind of dangers could be. That's what it is. Weather and environment, danger. Yeah,
correct.
Use it to your advantage and make the game, really dangerous for us.
Correct. Now, I think that certainly we should be able to affect the weather, but temporarily. I think that if we are going to cast a spell that helps us take down a mob, it should only last for a set amount of time. So maybe only 10 minutes that we have the power to affect that weather in the zone, and then it starts coming back. Because, heck, who are we? We're just like small little PCs trying to affect the whole world over here. The weather would really, really, really need to mess us around, I think.
Yeah, I mean, imagine now the cleric with his wall, his wall he has to block off the monsters, right? I go and bang that down, boom. Now it's thunder and lightning above us. Now lightning hits my shield and now adds an effect of it electrifying as well. So every monster that tries to get through in that time, while it's electrified, also gets damaged. Doesn't get stopped, it gets damaged. Or, other possibility, the shield gets blown to pieces. Yeah. The
Well,
same with the summoner as well, with his walls and stuff like that. There's so much that they could do, and
correct.
this is also stuff that they don't have to do right away. This is stuff that they could add in throughout time, or even use to mess with us. There's so much that they could do with these systems, with the weather and environment. Like they could really mess with us and make us, rip our hair out, bite our fingernails off, smash the keyboards because of all the frustration, because these guys are messing with our minds and causing havoc with us. It would be awesome. It would be really cool events. And this brings me up to the point now, before we carry on, disclaimer time, because hey, we've been rambling on for 40 minutes. Disclaimer: we are supporters of the game, fans of the game. We're not paid by VR to do our shows. We do not work for VR. We are not developers. We're community folk like everybody else out there. We're here to help spread the word of Pantheon first and foremost. To help spread the time. Help the time for waiting for alpha, pre-alpha testing, etc. to finally get into play. So we're here to bypass that with entertaining everybody out there and engaging with the community, talking on all kinds of ideas related to the game, and to speculate as well. There's a lot of speculation on these shows. None of this is, set in stone or anything like that. It's purely speculation at this point until, we either say otherwise or VR says otherwise throughout whatever they release, etc. And so also help the devs maybe think of ideas that they might not be thinking of, or they might have, tunnel vision on their dev programming and not thinking outside the box there. So we're there to help them as well, and just have fun with everybody. And anyone's welcome to join us on the stream to talk with us. If you're interested in a certain topic that we're doing, like you see in the show calendar, let us know. And then we can, accommodate for you coming onto the show. You don't have to be on camera. If you're camera shy, you don't want to be on camera or anything, but you want to have your voice heard, you can come onto the show in TeamSpeak and then, chat along with us.
Yeah, because it's a lot easier to talk on these type of things than it is to type.
Yeah, I mean,
you can say a lot more.
We would love to type in the forums as well. A lot of engagement, great ideas in the forums, but we haven't got the time to do both. So we picked this format. We thought would be the best way to go about it. So there you go. That's a disclaimer.
Yeah. Yeah. Another aspect that we spoke about as well, I just want to add to what you said as well, is in the frigid areas, if it's extremely cold, metal might actually shatter at certain temperatures. Have a chance to shatter if it's not magical, if it's not something like that. So yeah, you try and swing it at somebody else's chess piece, it could shatter, or the chess piece could shatter, type of thing.
Or you grab this big, huge wooden. I would love. This is something I would love to do to Lexa. Grab this big wooden mace, really
smash it over him,
and then have him in his full plate armor in the frigid cold, and just smack him and watch him go all the way across the door. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Anyway, something I want to talk about. Great idea is from B. Franny. Flooded zones. We talked about this actually before our show. Having events like that happen. Now the problem is obviously, if this isn't something that the developers already had planned or talked about, then it would be definitely cool to do. It's possible to do even now, but it would require a little more work towards. Again, they would have to basically recalibrate the zone, do a little bit more programming, and this would be also related to downtime. So it might not happen right away. It could happen later. Definitely a cool idea to see flooded zones. We already talked about having mountains and bridges and stuff like that all destroyed, and having quicksand.
Aren't they called swamps?
Swamps, having swamps and stuff like that actually feel like a proper swamp, where all of a sudden it starts raining. Now the quicksand's even quicker. You're getting sucked in. I would love to actually see quicksand affect me.
Exactly.
We see it in every MMO that there's swamps, and you see that, that's meant to be quicksand. It might slow you down a bit, but you don't see yourself falling in. Why
exactly.
not? I'd love to just get myself stuck in quicksand and fight for my death. You know,
Yeah, like
have to go and grab onto Molia that we saw, that big massive snake, grab onto her and pull myself out.
or the Swamp of Sorrows, a never-ending story, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Lex would push me, and yep, he definitely would. He'd actually be jumping on top of me and get me down there quicker. Yeah. So that's definitely there's so much that they could do with weather and these are the things that I talk about, that I love talking about. I don't care about the standard stuff, because I know that's going to be part of the game. I know that disease, certain resistibilities are going to be required, etc, etc, etc. This is what gets me excited, everybody. This is the stuff I'm talking about. Weather, environment, dynamic NPC, all the small stuff, all the fluff that nobody else really cares about. This is the stuff that really gets me excited about a game. Because if that's all in effect, I feel like I'm really immersed in this world.
Correct. Yeah, you really, really feel part of the environment, and you actually feel insignificant ultimately, because you're not one person changing the world. You're just stuck in this world trying to make your way. But I'm also quite curious how silencing will work, and how that's actually going to sound, or not sound, should I say.
Well, yeah, that's definitely interesting. It might affect mages, for instance. It might affect healers that have to voice, like the shaman, for instance. You might have to heal you. So boom, he might get silenced. So he might not be able to heal you anymore. Or the mage who goes, oh, thundering lightning. Boom, you're silenced, dude. You ain't calling it. Or the summoner trying to call his pets. Yeah, boom, you're silenced. You ain't doing squat, dude.
Exactly.
It could have stuff like that. Darkness is another interesting one. Black screen. Where the hell am I? That would be wicked. They had we've had it in multiple games all the time. These black screens, all of a sudden the screen goes black or it starts shaking, and this is the cool stuff.
Exactly.
Add lots more of that into the game. Darkness affecting us. All of a sudden it starts going dark and dim, or have the screen slowly force its way in like this. So it's light and it gets darker and it gets darker and it gets darker. It gets dark. All of a sudden you disappeared. Now you're running around in circles. You're like, whoa, where the hell am I?
But not only that though, if you even got like some sort of an everlasting crystal of light in front of your hand like that, the darkness is maybe about 30 centimeters out from that, so it really feels like you are, I don't know, it's just about to fall around you basically.
Well, I see. We had one question earlier on we didn't quite touch on to, but I want to bring quickly back up, is they were talking about torches, and when it rains, obviously, can you really, would a torch have an effect when it's pouring down with rain? Technically not. It would get put out. So it could be a magic torch, but luckily for us, everybody, now this is a joke, okay? We have gnomes in the game, and we all know that gnomes are technologically advanced, and they call it tinkering and tweaking and making all kinds of stuff. Torch umbrellas. All I'm gonna say, yeah, for stuff like that.
But don't gnomes have that like lightning stuff running through their body?
Yep, they light up. So that's what you do.
We
always
just have to stick
always have a pocket gnome in your pocket. Get yourself a pocket gnome. Boom. It's raining. Torches.
You just have to take the
pocket gnome,
the druid staff, and bang up its Jackson, and then you can hold it up in the front of you.
You can even use gnomes as fireworks for New Year's. You just take that wooden bat like I mentioned earlier on, you throw them up in the air and you just smack it up, and then you just watch it go.
Pinata.
Because we know they are basically, they ain't nothing. They're a floating, glowing little ball of light. So you can
gas.
Really... Yep. So there could also be like maybe a mage or a druid or a shaman or whatever could make magical torches, etc. So there's stuff like that that also could take into play. You know, you have a fireball from the wizard instead of a normal fire going. So stuff like that. So there's always multiple ways to go about it. But I really love the torches, and I can't wait to see us running around through, you know, through the woods or through a dark, shady place with torches in our hands and getting scared, looking, you know, sneaking behind every corner to see what the hell's going on, and hoping that the fire doesn't, you know, attract. That's another thing I want to talk about real quick. Kind of unrelated, but now, if we're in a zone and it's dark and we've got torches, now shouldn't that also be something that affects the NPCs as well?
Oh,
they start seeing, you know, a dim light coming, and they obviously hear the cracking sound of the flame, etc. That's stuff that should infect us as well and affect the NPCs. So just because I put a torch on and I'm running through because it's lighting up to brighten my environment, technically yeah, but if I'm trying to hide and sneak around, it should also be a danger for me.
Exactly. No, they're 100% right.
They get alarmed.
And that's how you can actually like put a torch in the ground somewhere and let them run towards the light, and you attack them and surprise them.
I like that one, Nexa. I like that one. Keep a gnome in the jar. When it gets dark, just shake the jar. Boom, lantern. I love that. That's really, really good. That's really good. I've got another joke for you, Josh, as well. Completely to the side, a joke. I came up with this for, you know, t-shirt. So you know how we are all cursing exclamation marks in games and I destroyed the game and it's terrible. It is terrible, don't get me wrong. But if we had exclamation marks in the real world, right? I'll tell you this. If my wife had an exclamation mark on the top of her head, right, I would not be in hell right now. So, you know, having exclamation marks isn't all that bad.
She can give you a bonus when you solve that quest.
Yeah. So there you go. Jokes aside. Do the NPCs need torches? We do not know. I think they should. Because if they have, you know, because we know that it's going to be a lot more intelligent. The NPCs are going to be a lot more smarter. They have behavioural patterns. And I think certain humid beings should also have to use these as well. Because if I'm fighting against ogres or orcs or goblins, they don't have hindsight. They don't have extra vision. You know, they can't see better than me in the dark. So they should also run around with torches and stuff like that. It should also affect them.
Unless, as Frogster says, they are nocturnal creatures who don't need torches.
Yeah, unless that, exactly.
Yeah. So it'll be quite interesting to see what creatures they invent that'll be immune to certain weather effects and environmental effects, such as we said, the nocturnal creatures. What creatures will they create for miasma and for all these type of things? So yeah, it'll be interesting.
There's a question in chat from Genocide Riz. Is Pantheon playable at the moment? Alpha. Currently, it's still in development. They're in pre-alpha state, as what they call it, and they're getting closer now to open up the doors for the pre-alpha testers, for the VIPs out there. The general goal was for the first quarter of 2017. They're now, obviously that's now passed, so we're looking at Q2 to Q3 is when hopefully pre-alpha testing will start, and that will go for about 3 to 6 months, and then alpha will be around the corner after that. So you got a bit of a wait. I'm thinking sometime winter 2017, early 2018 is when alpha will officially kind of like kick in. That's what I'm speculating on at the moment. Not set in stone, like I said, this is purely speculation, but that's the goal currently. Is now we're looking at Q2 2017, Q3 2017 is when the official testing will start, where the first people get into the game to actually go and help the developers test it out.
Yeah, we're all hoping for sooner than that, but unlikely, I reckon.
Yep. But they do have another stream coming up soon. Ish.
Yeah.
TM trademark. Sometime. A lot of speculation on when it's going to be. I presume sometime in April. I'm actually speculating around the Easter time period is when they're most probably going to do the next stream. A lot of stuff they're going to be revealing there. A lot of new stuff that we haven't seen before. New zones, etc. The Mad Musician Tower that they mentioned in the February newsletter. I can't wait to see that. I just can't wait to see that. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be wonderful. It'd be great to see some of the effects as well within that tower.
Especially, because this tower is so far away, it's so distant. It's like, he got banned. He's like Saruman, or what his name is from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Who got put in that distant tower. He's like him. He's crazy. He's nuts. He's insane.
Saruman.
Yeah. I just hope that, I always picture this tower now. Every time I think about it, I always picture this tower being like huge. Like you look up and it's like 1,000 meters high. It's like,
Like it has those weather system at the top over there, clouds around it, and all sorts of things. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for, and I hope there's like an underground cavern maze and stuff like that. Prison and whatnot. That's another thing. Unrelated to this topic is I'd like to get put in prison for misbehaving in game in a town. If I get too drunk or start beating up the guards, put me in prison. Lock me away for half an hour. Make me try and make me try and make it a fun event. Make me try and escape out of the prison. Have me put in shackles.
Take away your gold.
Have me put in shackles and maybe put me on display. Locked up like this, and then people throwing cake at me and trying to dodge. Woohoo!
All your stuff gets taken away.
I mean, imagine locking up the Scar, Josh, in the middle of town square like that, with all his spikes everywhere, and the horn here at the head. That's 100 points for you, kid. 5 points for here, 10 points for there. If you get the elbow, you're looking at 25 points.
Well, I think every time Lexa goes AFK, he gets put into the stock.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would love to see stuff like that. It's all the little things that, make it more for me. When I see all these screenshots, Wild's End has just blown my mind so far because it's exactly how I imagined it. And, imagine a global event happening, and we know that Wild's End is purple, it's pink, it's blue, it's green, it's what the... Now, servers go down, servers come back up, and Wild's End's now a wasteland. The trees are dead, it's not green, it's not blue, it's not purple, it's just dead. It's barren.
Exactly.
And these are effects that don't have to constantly be. These could be like we talked about, having global events happen, where we as the community have to go out and conquer a certain goal. Otherwise, this effect will stay in play for another week or another 2 weeks or a month or whatever period. These are all cool things that they can do with all of these features that they have at their arsenal. There's so much potential for them. Obviously, yes, there's a lot of work to be added to it to make it work properly, etc. But it would make it all worthwhile, because that means that they can have as much... They don't have to think about the next expansion coming up in 12 months or in 18 months or in 24 months. Who cares? We're not going to be talking about expansions if they have all these cool events in play, where they do small updates, maybe reveal new lore, maybe have something cataclysmic happen like they did with World of Warcraft. Cataclysm, boom, the world's completely screwed up. And that's something that's going to last for maybe 6-7 months until a raid force or a bunch of raiders or a whole community gets together and defeats that evil whatever it was that caused all this.
Exactly.
Or even not. So this is all great stuff that helps them, and with this engaging us as a community, we're not going to be have the time to think about when's the next expansion coming out.
Exactly.
Because I'm fed up with that. I'm fed up of rushing through content or working my way through content, knowing exactly, because nowadays you get forced into rushing through content because you know exactly on this day in 12 months time the next expansion is going to come out, new gear is going to be in play, new this is going to, so you automatically have the urge to rush forward, get the most out of this current content that you have, so that it's not a waste of your time. I'm fed up with that. I'm fed up with having to rush through CRAP and, you know, deal with it. I want to be able to, you know, take in what's going on around me. I want, you know, I'll be in Wild's End for like, you know, 3 months before I even get out of there. I'll be in like 3 months time. You won't see me. I'll be, you know, hiding in the bushes, you know, taking wildlife photos and stuff like that. You won't see me for 3 months because that's what I'm going to be doing. You know, it's stuff like that. Engage me. If the world's engaging me, I don't care. I'm not gonna even bother thinking about anything else.
Correct. You add the environments and the way the weather environments are going to change throughout the zones, etc., and maybe through events. But you also have to think about also the NPCs that might change because of you clearing out a certain area, and other other monsters take over that area. So there's going to be changing mobs as well, ultimately. So it's even more.
Good point there. Somebody actually spotted something we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about atmospheric effects, how a pressure effect could affect us exactly. You're exactly right. So pressure could affect you by basically maybe a invisible wind force pushing you back. So it's slowing you down. It's making you, you know, really use your strength to get forward. It could technically levitate you. You know, you might need sturdy feet. A tank might need a sturdy, you know, stance to fight these encounters. But because he's levitated, all he's doing is flapping like this.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's how pressure could affect us in Pantheon. That's how I could see it being done. You know, or it could be, you know, vice versa. It could also push you forward too much. So you're getting pushed forward, but you don't want to go forward. You want to go back. You want to stay far away from what's in front of you as much. So you're getting the pressure from behind, pushing you forward. So picture like, you know, a wall just pushing you towards where you don't want to go. So that's how I could see atmospheric pressure affect us.
It could also be similar to the way pressure works underneath the water. And the way you move based on that pressure as well. So your movements might be slower now because you're fighting through the thick air basically, and the pressure in that. So yeah, I agree.
So there's definitely ways to do that. Sandstorms as well. I want to see sandstorms, proper sandstorms, not the little things that we see in every other game where little blizzards whirling around. I want to basically look up with my group in the distance, and see this massive, looks like a beehive, a swarm of wasps coming towards us. That we might have to take cover. That we might not be able to spend 3 hours in this zone because a massive sandstorm is coming towards us.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Push, yeah, and then you see this sandstorm coming towards you, and then the mummy is in. I'm just kidding. Anyway, I like to see proper sandstorms, and that affect us as well. But also, like we talked about, you know, weather, environment, climate, etc. Also have like NPCs in these zones as well, where you might be able to acquire certain items that only affect you for weather or for the environment or for the climate. I don't always have to get, you know, weapons or clothing from or food from these NPCs. You know, these faction, let's call them faction NPCs. That's what they mostly are. They could also have items that, you know, help us with weather, with the environment, etc. So yeah.
No, exactly.
Is there a giant face eating a plane? That would be cool. But we're not planes. But they could be eating. What's that ship called? Somebody help me out. Gnomes flying spaceship. Sky something. Skylander. What's it called again? I forgot. I forget.
Me too.
You could have this massive giant face eating that. But also, another great thing, because we talked about it so much today, frigid, freezing cold. What about, they've done it in EverQuest, they've done it in EverQuest 2, slippy, sloppy slew, trying to get up that path, and it's icy as hell, and you're swerving, and definitely want that in game.
Yeah, you need special equipment to get up there.
You need either special equipment, or you have to be really skillful.
Shoes.
I want stuff like that. Maybe like, if it's raining, it's muddy, so your steps are, you're all mashy, and you feel like you're sticking to the earth itself, and you're glued to it. All this kind of stuff would be great.
Correct. Unless you levitate, as Giggity says. So Alexis says there, what do you guys think about weather causing UI effects such as water droplets on your screen, etc.? Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be cool to see, every now and then, a splash of rain, a raindrop on your screen. It's done in multiple games, especially in first-person shooters, etc. Because you're in first-person mode, it's raining. You got your scope, for instance. You're looking down your scope, you can see the raindrop on there. If you're in a car, you're driving a racing car game, it's raining. You see definitely. I'd love to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's the little things, like when it's snowing, have a massive ice flake smash onto my screen, and then slowly over a few seconds evaporate, because my screen's obviously so hot, because I'm awesome. It melts. Just kidding, guys. Anyway, but definitely I'm all for that kind of stuff. It's fluff. Technically, it's something that should also be an option though. It should be something that people can turn on or turn off if it's available. I mean, you've already done it on our website. You added the snowflakes on our website because it was wintertime. It's technically spring. Why isn't my why isn't the website lighter? Why isn't there no sun ray coming through? Why is there no flowers on the bottom of the website? Blossoming. Lex, get to it. Only joking. Anyway, we've wrapped it, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Storm damage to gear and or health. Definitely, we've already talked about that.
Yes.
This, it should have pros and cons, benefits and disabilities towards you. The weather should also affect you as it does in real life. You could have it like raining down or freezing cold, and you might get a timed sickness spell. So you got a bit of the sniffles. So you might have a 3%. All of your abilities have been weakened by 3% for 3 hours because you got the sniffles. It's a rare, it's a random thing that can happen. It's random on they could limit it, say between 1 and 5, or between 0 and 5%. That somebody gets the sniffles in the group, and then he's at a disability. It's also challenging to us then, because this guy's now 3% or 2% or 5% weaker than what he normally is, especially when it comes to a tank, or if DPS is needed, to DPS classes or to the healers. If all of a sudden they're affected like that, it becomes a whole entirely new game.
Yeah.
We have to rethink our strategy going forward. Yeah, shamans can cure disease, but you can also have incurable diseases. This might be something that's it might be a Terminus disease. And because we weren't born on Terminus, we were all brought to this world. Shamans won't know anything about that. The Terminus diseases. It's from the world itself. It's from Mother Earth. Mother Terminus has has her own diseases in play. So anyway, besides the point, there's stuff like that they could do as well. So chicken noodle soup, definitely. +5 to sniffles, yep. And with that, guys, thanks for joining us. We are currently working on our next calendar
3 months,
for the next 3 months. We already have a few shows in play, but we will let you guys pick next week's topic. Out of 4 possibilities, we'll put a topic up for you guys to or 4 topics for you to choose from. I will get to that once I have a chance to speak to Lex and Josh to see what choices we put up. There's definitely going to be a raid topic in the next series of shows. There'll be PvP. What else did we have, Josh, that we were going to talk about?
I can't recall. But we'll put it up. We'll put it up
anyway. So there's going to be plenty to talk about. We'll also have We're also going to have the Paladin show.
That's right. Yeah.
We're going to revamp the Crusader show and talk about it now from a purely Paladin perspective, and that will be in April for sure. And just to let you guys know, Tavern Talk is now only once a month. It's not every 2 weeks anymore. It's not every week anymore. It's only once a month. Tavern Talk. That's always going to be the last Tuesday of every month is when we do Tavern Talk. And with that, guys, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Thursday. Hopefully with a show that we can indulge you with after you voted. Don't hurt us. Don't be nasty. So with that, guys, hopefully Lex will be there to help us, coordinate and concentrate and slap us around as he normally does when he's there. So with that, guys, see you all next Thursday for a show voted by you out there. So with that, have a great night.
Cheers, guys.